We're in the information age, but facts are in short supply. Reject the noise, ask bold questions, and pursue the truth with FBI whistleblowers and founding suspendables Garret O'Boyle and Steve Friend. This is the American Radicals Podcast.
It is the American Radicals Podcast. On a Tuesday, it's a brand new week, January 7th. Glad to have you along with us today for the ride, 10:30 on the Eastern Seaboard here on Rumble, rumble.com/amradpod. Guys, remember, as always, follow the channel. We crossed over the 4,000 mark. Very thankful for that. On to the next one and smash the thumbs up. If you listen to the podcast on iTunes and iHeart and Spotify, do make sure you subscribe so you get the automatic updates Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Today, we are talking about being on fumes. You know, like you just don't have quite enough gas in the tank left. It's more of a association with the lame duck session at the presidency at this point, because we have the new Congress, but there's still a lot that the current occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue can do, the human Roomba, and there's a mentality there as well. And I'm going to have to harken back to my 9th grade biology class where Mr. Thompson taught us that no, in fact, in the movies, if you throw a match into a bucket of gasoline, it will not explode. But the most dangerous part of that are the fumes that are coming off of the bucket. So we are actually in a spot of danger right now, which is why we want to highlight that today, where Joe Biden is on top of giving some awards to some of the worst people on earth, and not just liberal white women. Those are included, of course. But he's also arranging for the DOJ to give millions of dollars to schools for restorative justice, some race and LGBTQ rainbow kamikaze madness there. And then also some of our international partners are very upset with the fact that in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a new president of the United States, and they're threatening to retaliate against us because we are in a diminished state. But we're going to get to all of that, so much more. Grateful to have you with us today. Grateful to have Garret with me today at GOB Actual, sir. Hope you had a great weekend, and we are back for our first Tuesday of January of 2025. Ready to get at it. Let's go, man.
We are back, Steve. And, over the weekend at church, 2 days ago, I talked to a guy. He's a police chief in a tiny community here. And also on the side, he has a security business that he runs with another former police officer. This former police officer was in Trump's last administration in the DHS. And their company, they've been doing it, he told me, for just about 4 years now. And it sounds like they're doing really well. But he told me, he's like, hey, unsolicited advice, but I think you guys should get into consulting or something along those lines. And it made me think, because we've had other people tell us that before. And I thought, we kind of do that. We do that on the American Radicals Podcast, and we do it for free. So if you're listening, this is a free template of the consulting that we should probably be getting paid $500 an hour for. But hey, we're here for free to bring you some truth and some levity and some the O'Boyle meter will certainly get up there today, I'm sure. But it just got me thinking, like, we're not in it for the money, Steve. We never have been. Hence the 28 plus months of no paycheck for us from the DOJ, from the FBI. But hey, I'm glad to be here.
Well, Peaches will be our first client, I'm sure.
Peaches.
All right, let's get to it. This one pertains to the end of the lawfare, because there still is the sentencing for Donald Trump, which it was announced last week by the judge in that trial, Judge Merchan, that Donald Trump will actually be sentenced later this week for the hush money trial. And this was the title that they gave him about having been a convicted felon, 34 felonies, even though they were all misdemeanors outside the statute of limitations. And it was basically like an accounting error, but they really just wanted to stand Stormy Daniels up there so she could give some salacious details and embarrassing. And a lot of palace intrigue went into it. Reporting from the Associated Press, Judge Juan Merchan, who presided over Trump's trial, signaled in a written decision that he'd sentenced the former and future president to what's known as an unconditional discharge, which I was not familiar with this.
I'm not familiar with that.
New York thing, but the case is going to be closed without jail time, a fine, or probation. Trump can appear virtually for sentencing. He doesn't even have to go there. So that seems like it's, I guess, good. There's a period on the end of that sentence. No hanging modifiers or prepositional phrases here. Merchan ruled that Trump's current status as president-elect does not afford him the same immunity as a sitting president. Setting the verdict aside, dismissing the case would be a drastic step. He still wants to get his pound of flesh, however he can get it, even if he doesn't send him to jail. But the other thing to remember is Trump can't even appeal the conviction until the sentencing. So when that happens, maybe he'll spin up his attorneys to go at it just to clear his name. I don't know if it's worth it at that point. I mean, the guy's almost 80 years old. Is he really worried about this is going on your permanent
Yeah.
record? I think two-time president probably supersedes that. I mean, is it going to restrict his ability to own a firearm? He gets lifetime Secret Service protection. I actually want to zero in on Merchan himself, who I hope has an exfil strategy, because they already got their pound of flesh for the conviction. If he doesn't put Donald Trump in any sort of incarceration,
He's gonna walk away with a Colombian necktie.
I mean, in New York City, on top of that, I mean, look, Daniel Penny's not coming to your rescue. I mean, he was in the press box with Donald Trump and JD Vance at the Army Navy game. I don't think he's going to be riding on the subway next to you to protect you from the next guy who wants to set you on fire.
I'm hoping that Daniel Penny is moving to West Virginia or somewhere akin to that. But Steve, I think of this case, and you said it. I don't know if it's worth it for Donald Trump to fight this any further. I tend to agree with that assessment, because why would you? When you're Donald Trump, you're a billionaire. You're the president, and now the president again, or just about to be. And so why would you? But at the same time, that kind of makes me think, oh, the lawfare worked, because here's a sentencing, here's a conviction on his record, and forever, for as long as we have the annals of American history, it will say Donald Trump, president, the 45th president and the 47th president, convicted, again, convicted felon. And I think of that sign, that homemade sign I mentioned during election season, that was, just down the block or whatever from us, where it said something like, "You can't back the badge and vote for a convicted felon." Well, when you use the law as a weapon and use it incorrectly to go after your political enemies when they truly haven't really committed any type of crime that, like James Comey would say, a reasonable prosecutor would pursue, is it really a legitimate conviction? But in the minds of tens of millions of people, it is and will be.
I almost associate it with the rich guy like a Donald Trump facing a civil lawsuit, and it's just cheaper to settle it
Yep.
than go through the litigation. But if you do, and it comes out that, well, they signed a non-disclosure agreement, but we're going to presume that you must have done it, rather than come to the conclusion that it financially and for the brain damage it's going to take, just the headaches, it's not worth it for these guys to do a lot of time. It's going to be up to him, but it is still a potential danger there. Maybe someone gets into the ear of Merchant and says, "You know what? Rikers Island looks kind of interesting.
Yes.
Why don't we send them up there for a minute?"
And think of somebody like a Juan Merchant, the ego that probably surrounds him and his thought process.
His book deal goes away if he doesn't do it.
Uh-huh. And he's got to be thinking, I've got the power to sentence Donald Trump, the most hated person by the left in probably at least 50 years, maybe longer. He's one of the most hated probably of all time. We Okay, I'll put it this way. He's the most hated since Richard Nixon, I think. So he knows he's got the power. He's got the chance to sentence him to prison. Imagine that. Right before he Donald Trump is supposed to take over the White House once more. No, Juan Merchant will enter his place, his role for history, and sentence Donald Trump to, I don't know. I don't know what the sentencing guidelines would be on something like this, but for even if it's for a day, to perp walk Trump in the orange jumpsuit, I think it would raise Trump's celebrity even more. But at the same time, Juan Merchant has got to be licking his chops at even the idea of doing something like that.
Donald Trump would probably get a Trump Vance 2024 paddy wagon to pick him up in his jumpsuit. And he is, after all, the most dangerous man in America. Second, I mean, we're splitting hairs here, but the second most dangerous person in America is definitely the pipe bomber who we haven't caught for 4 years.
Oh boy.
But for
The
4 years, we've
actual
been going
terrorist.
after Trump. They haven't yet gotten very much details out. But now our ex-girlfriend over the FBI, I think that they're overcorrecting in light of the fact that there's going to be a new presidential administration coming in. They know that their reputation is mud at this point, and the accusations, not just of the weaponization and the politicization, but just continually having your Christopher Wray's getting up there saying, "I'm sorry, Senator, I can't comment on an ongoing investigation," particularly again with the January 6th pipe bomb case, because Thomas Massey and Loudermilk and some of these other more high profile, prominent representatives in the Congress have been just continually hammering the FBI. But why haven't you done anything? Why would you give us any of this information for the pipe bomb? Because for all intents and purposes, it is a different investigation than the Capitol, the siege, the insurrection. I know they happen the same day. I know we collect them together, and there are legitimate concerns and conspiracies, or just using some deductive reasoning to think that there is a connection there. But the investigation itself is a separate matter. It's not pertaining to the Capitol. It's a weapon of mass destruction. This could be the only legitimate act of terror or attempted act of terror that happened on January 6th, 2021. And all of the, I don't know, mishappenings that surrounded the investigation here, where we got the cell phone data. Oh, it was corrupted. But the cell phone company said, no, it wasn't. So hopefully you all forgot about that because Christmas came. So we're not going to talk about it. And the FBI is now overcorrecting, and they are sharing the latest and greatest of the footage with us all. And this is from ABC News. The FBI released a new video and information in the hunt for the
Wow.
January 6th pipe bomber.
They must really want to solve this case, Steve, don't you think?
The reward is now $500,000. Are
Whoa.
you eligible if you point to the guy in the cubicle next to you and you happen to work over at Washington Field Office? The video compilation produced by the FBI shows a new angle, no new information. They are also projecting that he's somewhere in the area of 5'7" tall, and he has a very specific pair of Nike shoes. All of this is stuff that we knew. Nothing is new about it. What's your read on why this possibly came out? I think I touched on the lack of transparency and then the overcorrection. Is there also an element to the Alethea Duncan crapping the bed on the New Orleans terrorist attack, and they're just trying to get by some good graces back from anyone, even people in Washington, D.C.?
I think so. I think a lot of this is, oh, we got a new chief coming to town, and we better, let's. I think the head shed is scrambling right now to try to give the people what they want to some degree. We know, because they're part of the intelligence community, that they will never truly and fully give the American people transparency in a righteous way, in a way that we're all deserving of. But they are looking at some of these events lately, because look at, you mentioned Alethea Duncan. Look at the events of January 1st. Now this information coming out about, or this quote, not new information, but this resurgence of curiosity, I guess, by the FBI to the January 6th case. So I think they're trying to at least put on this facade that, no, look, we are transparent. We are doing the mission for America. We're doing what we have always been meant to do. We're fighting crime and we're fighting terrorism. Are you though? Because when was the last time you heard of a legitimate terrorist attack or threat or plot? And when I say legitimate, I mean legitimate. So no government involved, no CHS, no UCE, no OCE involved from the start, but that the government had some of the information and they moved and they stopped it. I would say never. I don't know that they've ever done it since post 9/11.
Now, it's basically an indoctrination camp for so many people there. And there's a lot of hubris. And I think you're supposed to be hiring people who are vetted to have great levels of integrity and fidelity and bravery. That is, after all, the motto. But integrity, I'm going to go to that. Do you think, Garrett, that the people who work there right now have so deluded themselves with drinking the Kool-Aid and being indoctrinated, or they're just so filled with their own hubris that in their private moments they say, "No, I'm doing good work here. That's not pertaining to me." Even and I think there's probably a sizable people who we can exclude from the conversation who are unaware of it because they're willfully ignorant to it. And again, that's a professional issue to me. I think you should be paying attention since you are the federal police force. You should probably be paying attention to what's going on nationwide. But how would you rate it? I mean, it's kind of a tough one. It's for the agent class. We'll go to agents. We were agents. How many of them are thinking, "No, I'm doing good work and I'm working for an objectively good thing"? How many of them are saying, "That's not me and I'm ashamed, but I'm just going to keep my head down. I'm going to be fearful and try to do the right thing, what's directly in front of me"?
I hope I'm wrong about this, but I think it's 90% or more who, when they self-reflect, it does become that hubris that we talk about a lot. That's the fatal sin for the FBI is their hubris. Well, I guess that's the fatal sin since Lucifer fell from heaven is hubris, is pride. Because you've heard it from people, you've heard it from retired agents, you've probably heard it from current agents. I've heard it from current agents and employees, and they say I people have told me this in over this suspension era. They have said, well, I'm doing good work, I'm focused on the mission, I work criminal or I work fill in the blank, so I'm doing what we're supposed to be doing. And maybe they might be, but then they also will say, but the agency as a whole has fallen from grace, and somebody needs to fix it. It needs to change. It needs to be fixed. I do think change is coming. I do think it can be salvaged, but it's never them. They're never part of the problem. Well, how can an agency of 40,000 people, and you said agent class, so 12 to 15,000 roughly, when the agents are supposed to be the ones who are kind of running the show because you are the gun toting law enforcement personnel, when you are there, but you're doing good work, and the guy in the cube next to you and the gal in the cube next to him, and on down the line throughout your entire field office and out to your RAs, when every single one of you says, well, I'm doing the right thing and I'm doing the work in the right way, well, where does the buck stop then? Because because we've also heard from many current agents who say, yeah, this place is out of control and it's completely uh, been politicized and weaponized, and many of them too. And I was guilty of this probably 20 months ago. So after having been suspended for roughly 8 months, I was still thinking, clean out headquarters, clean out Washington, D.C., and then maybe you can fix the place. And we still hear that type of thing from current employees. But if all of you look in the mirror and say, I'm doing the right thing in the right way for the right reason, well, how can the agency be so off the rails then, even in your own perspective, and certainly from the American people's perspective? That doesn't, you can't mesh that.
A few bad apples moved an organization of 40,000 people that far astray, askew. I mean, I think it's possible when of the 40,000, 38,500 of them are just kind of bebopping along and saying, well, that's not me. And they just allow it to go adrift.
And,
It's
and
certainly been radicalized from the top, but I think that's comes short of identifying what the problems are, which is where I'm nervous. I know you're nervous about that. Every time I hear that, every time I do a media hit, and they always have to issue the qualifier. This is nothing about the good men and women, the brick agents that are doing the work. Well, they call them the rank and file because they have no idea. And they will say, well, it's just a change at the top, and it's insufficient. It's insufficient. And,
it is.
hopefully here, now that we're on fumes, we're going to get there before somebody strikes the match and does something even worse here from our ex-girlfriend, even from our ex-girlfriend's boss, which is the Department of Justice, who is extremely dangerous outside of just overseeing the weaponization at the FBI and all the other agencies are at its fingertips. I found this one and I thought that it would be appropriate to talk with you because it involves Satan's Youth Ministries, the public schools, as well as the Department of Justice. I thought we had an irrelevant and unnecessary agency called the Department of Education that we want to get rid of, but the DOJ just can't help. It is a bureaucracy. They're looking for new initiatives. They're looking to marry things one to another so they can expand and get money and also push forward their political agendas, because Merrick Garland is a communist, as are many of people who occupy high prominent seats within the Department of Justice at this point. So I found this one. This is a study about grants that the DOJ has been giving out to school systems. $100 million of your money, my money, everybody in the audience's money. And these initiatives pushed DEI, restorative justice in the school systems,
Okay,
because the
see,
idea is that it's a pipeline from getting involved in, I don't know, disciplinary matters in school to that you wind up in prison. So if we address it at the young age, then maybe we can interdict these kids, get them on the straight and narrow. And we're going to do that with 102 grants through 36 states, impacting 946 school districts and 3 million students. I pulled out a couple of the examples here, Garrett, because there were some that were just very woke in the language and I didn't even understand what they were doing. But basically, the concept is it's wrong to give kids detention and suspend them, removing the disruptive forces from school, because that's a pipeline to prison. They need to be doing things in the schools and doing the hug a thug. That would be better. That's their conclusion. So, for examples, Minnesota Department of Education got $2 million to, quote, create safe learning environments where practices of anti-racism and anti-oppression are embedded, which I interpreted to mean that if the kid who's acting up is the right intersectional class, meaning that his skin is, or her skin, or their skin is dark enough, then they don't get punished. $2 million as a bribe to the Minnesota Department of Education in the great state of Tim A. Walls's Minnesota. Bowling Green, Kentucky. Bowling Green in Kentucky. Kentucky is a weird state, but it's generally conservative, but low in the monetary field. There's a lot of government dependence there, which is what the federal government knows. So they give them the golden handcuffs. Bowling Green State University got $2 million to develop a mental health curriculum. Well, you don't want kids, having issues there, for students in rural or impoverished districts. So poor kids who are having a hard time, involving mindfulness, meditation, yoga, and knitting circles.
knitting, huh?
I
You
bet
know,
you that's the Bowling Green FBI resident agency.
you're probably right. You know what I find interesting that's missing from that list is prayer. You can do yoga and you can knit and you can do,
Namaste.
yes, you can do some you could do anything else, but don't pray, Steve. Don't do that. Don't insert God, because you know what? If you even go back to Levitical law, punishment is part of it. And so detention, guess what? If you disrupt, you get a little bit of a punishment. And that's not a pipeline to prison, except for people who are already on the pipeline to prison. No amount of detention is going to stop that. And certainly no amount of hugging is going to stop that either. But what I find most curious is that you said $100 million, and then some other statistics in there, and then 3 million students. $100 million, 3 million students. Why don't we just divide that money up and give that to their families? That would give them the best chance. Just give them the money. But no, you spend
You're
it.
going to give each one of them $3.33.
Yes,
Here, kid, this will keep you out of prison.
pay your late fee back, and at the library, and carry on. You know,
You make a really good point, because the 3 million students, and I guess it's all this kids in those districts, so it's a little bit of manipulation, but $100 million is a lot of money, but
mhm.
it is not enough to impact 3 million
No,
people. So
no,
really, what is it? This is, hey, we're going to give $2 million to our buddies over at Bowling Green, who are probably organizing from the river to the sea protests
oh,
and their
good. Okay.
time, so they can have do nothing jobs, because it's certainly $2 million for knitting. Like, how much yarn are you really going to buy? Right. So you hire the person who's the director, who hires a bunch of other people, and it's make work. It's creating jobs for communists. And they're
Yes.
taking our money and doing it. The last one comes from New Jersey, Ocean City, $1 million to reduce school violence in a proposal that equates teasing to oppression and all forms of violence. So
Dude, this is
words, sticks and stones
yeah.
will break your bones now.
Mhm. This is that false utopia land that we're in. You're never gonna stop it. You're not gonna stop bullying. You're not gonna stop racism. You're not gonna stop hate. You're not gonna stop crime. You're never gonna be able to stop it. And
Wait, wait,
governments,
wait, wait. You don't think that putting stop hate behind the end zones of the NFL
yeah.
stadiums is gonna make us live in a place where I can change, you can change, everyone can change? Rocky 4, which turned 39 this week. Man, we were a great country once.
Um, riddle me this, Steve. In my circle, I'm a white guy. Let's just be clear about that. If maybe there's somebody listening who's never seen me before, maybe this is shocking news. I'm white. I'm a white person. Most people in my circles are white. Most people that I hate, Steve, guess what color they are? They are also white. Does that make me some type of bigot or racist or fearmonger or I don't know. But the point I'm trying to jovially make is that humans are going to be humans. We're not perfect. We never will be. Should we hate people? No. Should we uh, hate people because of the color of their skin? Certainly not. But it's gonna happen. And people are gonna commit crime and people are gonna do drugs and people are gonna act out in school and need to be put in detention. And the government, no amount of money, no amount of government program is going to fix that. Parents can help, uh, coaches can help, extracurriculars, even like knitting, could help, but none of these things are going to abolish the crooked line that is the human being. We are fallen from grace and we are a crooked line. Our whole life is a crooked line because we make mistakes, we err, we sin, we try most people I think try to do what is right, try to do what is good, but we are incapable of doing that because we are fallen. And so many people think that this utopia is achievable, and humans have tried it and it has always failed and it will always fail. And government, I don't even know why I have to say this. Government will always fail at it and government will always fail you. But people still keep thinking just throw more money at it.
I think there's probably a breakdown there similar to what we just talked about with the FBI, of the people who are willfully ignorant and the people that are just prideful. I don't think this is a good faith effort to correct a
No.
problem. By the people who are making that decision, they know it doesn't work. It's just a way to line your pockets. I think it's far more cynical than people who think that the power of government, which is their god, can do something. I think maybe a couple levels down, there are people who really do this. The street communists, where government is their god, they believe that that's possible. I think that the communists who are in charge, the elite communists, know it's never going to happen, but they figured out how we loot the treasury and get those street communists out in the streets, keep them happy and well fed enough so they don't have to get a real job and get smacked in the face with FICA, so they might become a conservative. We'll do that and use the resources that are at our fingertips now that we've been able to get installed into power. Um, to pivot away from that to another leader who is right up there with
I heard your finger quotes there.
the
Leader.
yeah. This one actually made me laugh, and it made me laugh because I'm thinking now about my Rocky 4 reference, where you just kind of want to just like, we were a great country once, and a great country would have just been like laughing at this, but we are on fumes as a country. The Biden administration is on its way out the door, and there are countries up there that are thinking that they have a lot of power. They're thinking that we aren't the country that, you know, Rocky Balboa knocked out Ivan Drago in the 12th round and ended the Cold War in. And one of those countries is a bleep hole one called Honduras. All right. So this one is great. Honduras is threatening to expel United States military as Latin America gears up for the Trump deportations, reporting from the New York Times. So the Honduran president, Castro, thank you very much, has threatened to evict U.S. military forces from a major base if President-elect Donald Trump follows through on his promise to unleash a mass deportation policy targeting illegal immigrants. Well, it's aliens, but thank you. It is the New York Times. An estimated 5%, 1 in 20 Hondurans live in America, by the way. I mean, just that's insane. That would be like 20 million Americans, right? Is 5% that live in another country, and they are worried about them. Honduras has a huge financial interest in keeping its population of illegals here because they send money back to Honduras. Honduras
Yes.
accounts for 20. Look, money that gets sent back to Honduras from their 5% accounts for 25% of their entire economy. That's how much we're 5x better
Whoa.
off here.
Whoa.
Okay.
That's crazy.
So the threat is we're not going to let you have this base here if you send our people back. So we need them to continue pilfering back
Yes.
there. And they expect us to say, oh, what are we going to do about that?
Yeah.
And so the great quote here is, without paying a cent for decades, they maintain military bases in our territory. They want us to pay to be there.
Ah.
A quarter of their economy comes from us, by the way,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
from workers, which in this case would lose all reason to exist in Honduras, said Castro. According to the U.S. government, the State Department, and USAID, they provide $780 million in aid to Honduras as well. So they could boot us out and we'll just pull the aid
Yeah.
and we can send all their people out and we'll have them begging for us. But they are on fumes on this argument that they have any leverage
Right.
whatsoever.
They have no standing here. And look, by no means am I a geopolitical master. I took some geopolitical courses in college, but I wanted to become an FBI agent. I wanted to become a cop. I did that, and then I wanted to be an FBI agent. But I've always been interested in this stuff. And for a while there, I thought, oh, maybe I'll minor in geopolitics or something along those lines. So I took some of those courses, and I'm glad I did. But by no means am I an expert. Am I a master in all of that? But this, look, lady, and all of anyone in Honduras who agrees, good luck. I mean, good luck. You don't have Joe Biden as the president anymore, or at least in what, 15 days or something like that. You won't have him. And you really think you really think you have solid footing to stand on here? Especially with someone like Donald Trump coming back into the presidency, somebody who actually has a spine, and probably his spine is probably more like adamantium for you X-Men fans out there, than it was before because of everything he's been through. You really think he's going to accept these bargaining points from Honduras about, we're going to kick you out of our nation? Oh, really? You really think that's going to go your way? Good luck. Just good luck with that. I mean, this I I would actually say this right off the bat, whether they want to try to kick our military base out of there and personnel out of there or not, that 790 million that you get is, we're going to zero that out anyways, as we should for the vast majority of countries that we're sending money to when we're 30 some trillion dollars in debt on our own. I mean, I don't have time for you, Honduras. All right, our military base is staying. I'm not a prophet, but I'm going to predict that, and please prove me wrong.
We need to have an incoming administration with an adamantium spine for the upcoming quademic. Have you tracked on that term yet, Garrett?
I have not.
The
No.
quademic is upon us, so
Oh
you
boy,
know,
I can't
because in
wait.
the waning days here, this is where we're really dangerous. And I mean, say that in all seriousness, they're gonna do it again, and they're trying it now, and that is the masks are on their way
No,
back for the
no, no,
quademic.
no,
The
no.
Daily Mail reports, and their official figures reveal that infections caused by flu, COVID, RSV, and norovirus,
Oh
sometimes
god.
called the stomach flu, all started to surge over the Christmas period. You mean people got sick when they were in close proximity and it was cold outside?
Yes, like we have
Never happened
forever.
in history.
Gosh, dude.
My favorite line from the story, and experts say figures will only continue to rise over the coming weeks in the
I love
US.
it. I love it, Steve. The appeal to authority fallacy, it never fails.
There are 4 states that started doing it um, in their hospitals,
Hold
and
on, hold
now
on.
they're
Let me guess. Before you list the states, you got to give me a chance to guess them.
I'm ready. Send them off.
Okay. California.
Yes.
Okay. Of course, California. Washington State.
No, no,
What?
no,
No. Okay. Then I better dig
you
deep.
still you're at a batting average of 500 right now.
I,
That's Hall of Fame.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I got cocky though. I got cocky. Okay, so we got California. Washington's a no. New York. We got it.
New York City is urging people to consider wearing a mask. That's not one of the
Urging, not
4 states, but I
mandating.
will give you credit.
Partial credit. Partial credit. I got to think of what's some of our wokest states here. We got to go with.
Think
Let's
Jesse
see.
Smollett.
Oh, Illinois, my southern neighbor.
There you go.
Of
You
course
got
they
that
are.
one.
Of course.
And
The
what's the
we
armpit to New York?
the, Massachusetts?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. Dang it.
Indiana's actually in there too. So
Indiana?
the states are California, Illinois, Indiana, New Jersey have brought back rules for staff and visitors in hospitals.
No.
And
We cannot
I
we
got
can't
one
accept it.
more bad one for you, Garrett, just so you for your situational awareness. The surge in infections is prompting a return of mask mandates in some states, with a hospital system in Wisconsin this week becoming the latest to
No.
reinstate them.
Unacceptable. We cannot go down this road again. We cannot. Does anybody know, or has anybody not realized yet?
This is even a Patriot Act from 25 years ago. This
This
is
is 2 years
recent
ago,
memory.
right? So if you aren't tracking yet, which I think if you're listening to us, you probably are, the masks don't stop the virus. Okay, your cloth mask, and part of me look. Okay, look right here. One of our newest additions to the store is the winter fleece Sherpa hat. This thing will keep your noggin warm. So part of me says, hey, let's uh let's make a suspendables mask, Steve, and sell that. But you know what? It wouldn't sell because suspendables don't wear masks. Okay, plain and simple. We don't wear masks. And if you're listening to us, you shouldn't wear a mask because they don't stop the virus. And I don't care if it's the norovirus or COVID or the common cold or RSV or whatever. They don't stop it. Because you know why? You know how you know? If you're wearing a mask and you take a crap or you're cooking some food and you can smell it, those particles that give you this sense of odor of that food are are smaller than are the virus particles are bigger than those. So if those are getting through your mask, okay, now I'm crossing my own streams here, Steve. Bail me out.
The odors, aromas coming from the food are um, able to penetrate. So, ergo, the virus, which is smaller, will penetrate more easily. It was like using a chain link fence to stop a mosquito. It's a screen door on a submarine. That being said, I do believe that any government employee who wears a mask is in violation of the Hatch Act, because tell me you're a communist
Dude,
without telling me you're a communist.
great point.
And
Great.
and while we're on the subject of communists with R's behind their name, in the days of being on Fumes, this dude is still kicking in a relatively conservative state, and he's gonna go after one of our idols here, and that is free speech, and that's Governor DeWine from Ohio. He
Isn't he a
vetoed.
Republican?
Oh yeah, he
Oh,
won overwhelmingly. He won by Ron DeSantis margins in
no
Ohio.
way.
He vetoed a medical free speech protection law that was passed by the state house in Ohio. So here's the details here. DeWine targeted his veto. It's a line item veto that he did, a medical free speech provision in House Bill 315 that would have blocked regulatory agencies like the Ohio Medical Board from pursuing or threatening to pursue disciplinary actions against any medical professional for, quote, publicly or privately expressing a medical opinion that does not align with the opinions of the board or agency. So if you say, I don't believe what the experts are saying, and you're a I don't know, an emergency room nurse in a private capacity, like just hanging out, someone can report you to the state for that. And the state house in Ohio passed a law that says, no, you can't discipline that person for that act. In the message to journalists a week later, Mike DeWine argued that the provision would have completely kneecapped the state's ability to punish doctors for medical malpractice. So saying that wearing a mask is stupid is medical malpractice now. He tried to characterize it differently because he said that doctors would be able to claim that their actual malpractice was just their sincere medical opinion. It's like if you showed up to work drunk and wound up sewing up a a surgery patient like a sponge on the inside, be like, that was my free speech. This is a tyrant, as
Yes.
so many, regardless of their political party, prove to be. And for whatever the reason is, they scratch that tyrant itch. They let it out anytime it pertains to coronavirus. I mean, at their core, at their deep core, they're all despots, no
Yep.
question about it. But because they get that cloak of protection, because they could say public health, and there are no guardrails for whatever extreme measures you want to take, nobody's going to criticize you by saying like, "Hey, I think walking one down on grocery aisle one way is probably overkill," or specifically to Ohio. Right, this is one of my favorite ones because there was all these ridiculous measures in the state of Ohio. They allowed high school wrestling to happen. All right, no masks required because you're breathing really hard. They didn't want kids to pass out, so they could do high school wrestling wearing the singlet, no change in equipment, but they weren't allowed to shake hands afterwards because that can spread the virus. So that's Ohio specifically.
Steve,
Nobody was going to criticize that because what, you want this virus to spread with the handshakes?
they were just slobbering all over each other
Your face
with
was in the guy's armpit. Come
yeah.
on.
Okay. I really don't have anything to add here because you nailed it. You said they're tyrants and despots. And they show it. They tell you who they are. And try as I might, I always struggle when I see it, when I hear it, because I think, how? How could you be that way? You're the governor. You're the governor of Ohio. You're a Republican, which allegedly means that you're a conservative. But I still would say that anyone from any political party should be opposed to tyranny, but they are not. They embrace it, and they're proponents of it in the measures that they take, in the measures that they instill, in the measures that they push on the people that they were chosen to govern. Being a governor, being even just a street cop, does not give you credence to be a tyrant. You are supposed to take that duty, and you are supposed to humbly fulfill that duty. Sometimes that means doing things that are difficult, doing things that may be difficult for your people. But when all the indicators are already in that doctors, well, let's start first, people should have free speech. That certainly means doctors should have free speech. And it certainly means that doctors should be able to have differing medical opinions based on their training, their experience, their beliefs, everything that brought them to the position of being a doctor. And the state, the governor, the president, the dictator, I don't care who is in charge, should not intervene and say, you can't do that. That is tyranny, plain and simple.
This is where the on Fumes reference, the callback, is so on on point. All right, because we're about to have at a national level, we're about to have a new president come in. There's a lot of people, particularly in Ohio, which went very hard for Donald Trump. People excited, and they're going to say, "Yeah, we're getting Trump back in. Everything's going to go great." This is a really dangerous and perilous time, and your governor slipped this past. How many people, even in our audience in Ohio, didn't know this?
Right.
Certainly around the nation. Now a precedent's been set. There's going to be another governor at some point who looks over and says, "Well, Mike DeWine got away from it,
Yep.
got away with it, so
So I
I'm going
can
to
do
do
it.
the same thing too."
And maybe I'll claw back a little more power. Maybe I'll go a step further than Mike DeWine went, just to see what I can get away with.
Now we talked about California being one of those states that wants the masks in. They're really worried about the air quality, right? Like that, they're always talking about their environment. Don't pay attention to the smog. Make sure you wear a mask when you're taking a shower because the coronavirus can come and get you or something. Um, but really, when it comes down to, and I've said this, I don't know how many times, communists are just a aggregator of malcontents, which is how you have Greta Thunberg, who is all about global warming, and apparently now Hamas, who partners with some tranny who really wants to promote minor attracted people. And we're going to pair that with an Antifa member, right? They're all just malcontents, nothing, no plumb line of ideology, except they're really angry. They want to bring the system down, which is why we're going to have air quality issues in the state of California to the point where we have to hire people. But we have to make sure that we're doing it with racial equity.
Well, of course, we have to
This
have that,
comes,
Steve.
they want to view air quality through a racial equity lens.
Okay, I can't wait. I actually can't wait.
This is the actual solicitation for
I
the job that they're hiring. I
I
found it.
I can't wait to hear how they what hoops they jump through to connect the dots on this. This will be
California Air Resources Board, CARB. Carbs
carb.
are bad. You got to
Yeah.
go low carb, right? Go
Mhm.
Atkins. The the job posting says the agency is developing a racial equity impact analysis tool known as CARB's Racial Equity Lens to advance the agency's vision for racial equity, a future where all Californians equitably breathe healthy and clean air, benefit from actions to address climate change, and where race is no longer a predictor of life's outcomes. So the people who are in charge of getting rid of the smog want to hire somebody because the smog's apparently impacting darker people worse than lighter people. This is the New York Times joke. New York Times headline: World to End Tomorrow. Racial minorities and women affected
At
worse.
worst. I just I
This is such a do nothing job. This is a
yeah.
giveaway to someone because they're black, right? Or they're Hispanic or whatever they want to do, right? Anyone who gets a job will have to provide a written feedback about the tool that they're supposed to be using to make sure racism and air quality, or I don't know, in some sort of namaste symbiotic way, right? They have to go to 4 meetings between March and June. So once a month. Okay.
Okay.
Total compensation for 4 months of work is $2,500. So you're getting about $500 to go to a meeting about how racist the air is, which is going to naturally get the Greta Thunberg type there. So it's a payoff. It's
Yeah.
$500 to come to our meeting.
Yep. I could do that. I could use $500 over the course of 4
You
months.
should push that in Wisconsin.
I know, I
Go to
should.
the hospital where they're demanding you wear a mask and start going out with the signs and say no justice, no peace,
Yep.
and you'll probably land a nice paying job.
I know I said I'm a white man earlier, but if we dig a little deeper, there's some layers you might be able to tell from the beard. And I know it's not summer here, but if I catch a few rays, you can really tell because my pigment changes a bit. I got some Middle Eastern in me, so I'll just lean into that and I'll say, hey, wait a second. I'm not actually a white man. I got some Middle Eastern in me. And on top of that, I identify as, I don't know, fill in the blank, whatever I want to identify as. So give me the job, give me the $500 once a month for 4 months.
You see, you're making a big mistake there by catching the rays. Look, trust me, as the face of the franchise with the great skin complexion in the state of Florida, sunscreen. Sunscreen, you don't need to get cancer because you're going to have to go to the hospital where the doctor will come in and say, I'm sorry, I can't treat you because you're not wearing a mask.
I thought it was the sunscreen that caused the cancer, though, Steve. That's what the internet tells me. The
Listen,
SPF,
it also
whatever.
says that it's turning the frogs gay.
Do you
Okay.
do you do you make your own sunscreen with beef tallow or anything like that?
No, I'm not married to Kyle Serafin's wife. Okay, all right. I've got 2 stories that are connected together, which again, in these on fumes, it's basically we're going to flip the double birds to you, America, because it came out last week that Joe Biden, in the waning days, in addition to giving clemency to a bunch of people on death row and his son and 1,500 people who included a judge who was getting a pay for play to send children to prison, he's giving awards out now. So
Thanks,
he
Joe.
gave the second highest civilian award to 2 members of the January 6th committee, two of the prominent members. I'd be kind of mad if I was on the committee and didn't get one, but I guess like Adam Kinzinger didn't get one. So I guess it was just
Mhm.
these two people. At least it was advertised. And that's Liz Cheney and Betty Thompson. This is reporting from NPR. Biden to honor Liz Cheney, Benny Thompson with a top civilian award. It was actually the second highest award. He It's called the Presidential Citizens Medal. Went to Liz Cheney, Benny Thompson, who led the congressional committee that investigated the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, according to NPR. They also shredded a whole bunch of documents. And
Wow.
if memory serves, obstruction of an official proceeding was passed, part of Sarbanes-Oxley, as an evidence tampering law after Enron, and it was applied to January 6ers, but the Supreme Court said, no, that wasn't appropriate. I think that Liz Cheney's behavior and Benny Thompson's behavior fit that bill quite nicely. It would be interesting that once we're beyond the being on fumes and we get a fresh tank of ethanol-free gas, because that's how we do it, marine gas in America in 2025. I'd like to see some sort of reference there, which now that I've spoken that out, I'm sure they'll get a pardon from Joe Biden in the next couple of weeks. But then the second article I want to link it to comes from the Blaze, because the highest award, the highest civilian award, Joe Biden came out and gave to Hillary Clinton
Oh boy.
and George
Talk
Soros.
about pay for play. I mean, give me a break.
So the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And do you think that Hillary Clinton is going to lay her head down on her bed? Obviously not next to Bill Clinton. They have separate bedrooms, and think like, I just got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. It's basically a participation trophy because you lost the 2016
Yeah.
election, right?
What can I do for my friend? I know I can give her an award.
I mean, she said, what difference does it make about the 4 people who were killed in Benghazi?
Yep.
But according to Joe Biden, quote, Secretary Clinton made history many times over decades in public service, including the first lady elected to the U.S. Senate. So she's got a vagina, and we're going to
Yeah.
say that's something. And after serving as Secretary of State, she became the first woman nominated for president. Again, she's got a vagina, so she gets a Medal of Freedom. And then you got George Soros, who is an investor, philanthropist, and founder of the Open Society Foundation. He's a communist who has turned over many countries' currencies. He's a pretty evil dude. Quote, through his network of foundations, partners, and projects in more than 120 countries, George has focused on global initiatives that strengthen democracy, human rights, education, and social justice. George Soros has given just enough money to buy himself in his last few days on earth, because Alex, his son, has already sort of taken
It's
over,
taken over. Yeah.
that he's bought himself a nice Medal of Freedom. The fact that our country, the United States of America, allows a foreign born person to meddle in our politics, to me, it's just inexcusable at this point. And I have a video for it here. If you want to just offer your thoughts, I'll pull it up here, Garrett.
Yeah. It's this tells me all we need to know about the politicization of our country at this point. I and maybe I missed it, but I don't recall in the past um, a president uh, ushering in awards like this at the end of their term. Maybe that's common. I don't know. I feel like I don't really recall that happening very often. Usually, when somebody gets an award, it was because something happened or they did something in some type of event. But this is just it's like the pardons, like you mentioned. It's just at the end, and it's like, oh, what can I do to I don't know lift the pedigree of my friends or my donors or both.
Well, here is the footage of Hillary Clinton getting her medal. Um, I
Look at
will say
that
you
smile.
should watch this one all the way through.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Okay, for those of you who are just listening, she turned into the devil and like kind of flew off into the crowd. That
That's not even the palate cleanser of the day, but that one got me when I saw
that was
it.
that was good. That was
I
good.
do need
Okay,
your perspective after seeing Beelzebub incarnate.
hold
Garrett,
on though. Hold on. Was that an actual clip of her getting the medal and then somebody GI'd it, or
somebody
was the
through
whole thing?
artificial intelligence was able to take that image right there, which is
Dude,
pretty impressive.
dude, that is Well done, internet. That's good stuff right there. Oh
All right,
man,
that's that story. The final story for being on Fumes, Garrett. Do have the palate cleanse again, which got me, and I found it just before we started the podcast and wanted to share it with you. But would be interested in you sharing your thoughts after finding out about just all the evil that's going on in the last
for
couple of weeks.
for sure. And I know I've mentioned it recently because I had dabbled in the books of wisdom quite a bit for these. I think I'm going to remain here for a while. I know I've tiptoed out of it a little bit lately, but we're back in Proverbs today. And if you just think of some of the stuff we covered, we talked about hubris and pride, and we talked about being crooked, and we talked about a new year, and all of these things that kind of work together for our lives and for our future. And in Proverbs 11, starting in verse 2, it says, "When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom." And just think of that concept when you look at our politicians, when you look at our politics, when you look at a governor like Mike DeWine. Do you think he's being humble? Do you think he's being wise when he says, "I'm going to just seize onto the tyranny because I've got the power"? Or is that pride? And I think it's pretty clear it's pride. And we talked about the FBI and the hubris there and pride there. Even these medals that someone like Hillary Clinton and Liz Cheney are receiving, is that coming from a place of humility for something they actually did that was beneficial, or is it just pride? Just pride at the end of Sleepy Joe's term, where what can we do? I think we all know the answer. It's clear that it's pride, and it's so the medal is actually a disgrace. It's actually a disgrace to Liz Cheney and the others. And the next verse too, verse 3, it says, "The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them." Steve mentioned the FBI's motto: fidelity, bravery, integrity. The integrity of the upright guides them. Is the FBI filled with integrity? And anybody watching or listening to this, just think, answer that question. Are they? I think the answer is pretty clear that they are not. They are crooked and treacherous, treacherous, and that will be their downfall. And we may not live to see it, but an Alethea Duncan who calls a terrorist attack clearly not a terrorist attack, that's treachery, that's crookedness, that's not having integrity, that's lying. She knew there was an ISIS flag there, and the same with a lot of the things we covered today. Think about it through a lens of integrity. Are your quote unquote leaders filled with integrity or not? I would say by and large, most of the time they are not.
I don't think anyone is doing things just to be excellent because that's okay to strive for excellence, to be ambitious, to do what you best you can with the gifts that you've been given. The problem is when you cross over into so that you can get the acclaim for yourself. And I'm sure that the Hillary Clintons and the Liz Cheneys and the Benny Thompsons, the George Soros, they'll get those medals and they'll put them up there because they got to stand up there and have it all be about them. Uh, they didn't use their tools or their gifts that they were given for something that was objectively good, just to bring about good results because bringing about the good results in and of themselves are a reward enough. And if you happen to get a medal along the way, that's okay. But you shouldn't aspire to that to get the acclaim for yourself. Uh, I have a palate cleanse, and the headline of it was how 2025 is going so far. But I like to reinterpret it through the lens of being on Fumes today. I want to imagine that on this boat ride is George Soros and Hillary Clinton. They're out there wakeboarding, they're water skiing. They just got their medals in celebration, and I would love to see this happen as a result. That probably gets you every time.
Oh, oh, as funny as that is, it pains me as well.
just out for a day on the
Yep.
lake, on the boat, and all of a sudden that boat is just going off on its own.
Yep. Oh man, that good luck. I don't know. I have nothing, Steve. I don't know what you do. Your boat is gonna. It's just. I, oh
Hopefully, it grounds into something that doesn't have people on it.
yeah.
That's
I just
that's
love
my
it
hope.
because they're. He's like, I'm gonna make a cool TikTok or whatever they're trying to do. And if you're just listening, you have to go watch this. You have to go rumble.com/amradpod and watch just that clip because it will be worth every 30 seconds of it.
Well said, and we'll close it out for us today, good sir. Guys, we'll be back with you on Thursday, 10:30. Until then, have a great day.
You've been listening to the voice of the Suspendables on the American Radicals podcast. Follow us on rumble.com/amradpod.